live or not, but I think it is. So welcome to Oneness Talk Radio and Intuitive You. We're so happy you are here. And this is my dear friend, Hope Fitzgerald. She is just one of the most incredible lights I've ever met. And she's one of those people that is living the oneness and the light of who she is and the spirit of all that it is. And I always, connect that place in my heart with her. And I'm sure you can feel her heart now. We all feel each other on this. And one of the things about her, she started a nonprofit long time ago. And she was actually a catalyst for mine. And she had told me, this was years ago, she had shared when she went, I believe it was to Africa, right, Hope, where you took a retreat, people for a retreat and worked with the orphanage. I want to say even lions. It was pretty cool. And so I was like, wow, she's doing it. I can do it too. And so that was part of the inspiration of One Heart Global and going to Thailand and Bali. So I am just so grateful for you. And I know you have so many amazing tools to share today. So I'd love for you just to open, with a little intro about you, and then we'll just kind of go from there.
Okay. I guess the first share is that 10 years ago, just about now, I had received a series of visions, and all on the same day, and they were all watery. The first one was a giant wave, and it represented a push of evolution that was coming to the planet. And I was told that it would be that the whole planet would be experiencing a push of evolution, and that if we learned how to work with the wave, not resist it, we would swim with it, we would surf it, we think the evolution would go easier for us. Now that was 10 years ago, and here we are today in it, completely in it. The waves have been building over the years. Then there was a second vision, and that one basically told me to leave all my intellectual knowing on the shore and go to the earth, go to the indigenous, go to the wisdom keepers of the earth, both now and our ancestors, for my knowledge, not book learning, so to speak. And then the third vision was this beautiful figure 8 made of flowing water. And that one didn't have any explanation to it. So it was hanging out in front of my vision for about 3 days. And finally, I said, this is kind of crazy. I'm going to sit down and dowse about it. So I'm a dowser. And most people will know about dowsing because they've heard of guys going out with sticks and finding water for a well. And that's an actual incredible science. And turns out dowsing is the oldest technology on the planet. It's depicted on the cave walls in southwestern France that are 70,000 years old. There's a guy there with a tuning fork or a dowsing rod. Anyway, I sat down with my dowsing rods and I started to ask a series of questions to try to understand what this figure 8 made of flowing water was about. And I was told that it had a name that we could use, we humans could use. It's called the infinity wave. And what it is a 10th dimensional energetic, so extremely purified, filled with love and compassion of that level. So the idea is that the love and compassion is inherent in the watery flow. Now, it's a geometry. It doesn't need a lot of language to explain it or teach how to use it. So if you just know that it's a figure 8, it can go to any size, teeny tiny, huge, and it's full of love and compassion, and it's in flow, you've got it. So they told me that I would be teaching about this. I didn't want to do that. I was not excited about, introducing something. Not that geometry is new. It's not new, but the components of it and the way it's being delivered now is new. And I was not feeling up to being a person who could, broadcast that to the world, which is what they told me I should do. Well, eventually, we do say yes to spirit, and I did. And so I started to receive these messages on a weekly basis. I would, for the first time to my mind, channel practices that I would do with my crystal bowls. And they told me to run workshops, so I did that. And it all unfolded really in real time. I was learning at the same time that the people in the workshops were learning about this new energetic. And it was a way for us to experience lifting out of 3D and into, I don't want to say where we were moving into because it could be anywhere. I mean, we are multidimensional beings, we know this. And yet, how often do we get to experience that in everyday life, not just when we sit down to meditate or go to a special cave or go to a special place on the planet, to experience being multidimensional in daily life. That was something new. And this infinity wave was really a gift from a loving universe to help us to do that, to prepare us for the times ahead, which we are in now. It has a million and one uses, some of which I know about, some of which I don't know yet. And I get emails from people who say, oh, I tried it this way, I tried it that way, and boy, did it work. It's really useful for using within oneself to come into coherence, to come into synchrony, okay? The watery flow of love and compassion that we're not really good at giving ourselves. It just gives it to us. We don't have to try, it's just there. So we run a figure 8 in our bodies, big or small. It's great as a communication tool, heart to heart. You and I hooked up right now with an infinity wave. So my field and your field are conjoined in this higher dimensional energetic. And when that happens, guaranteed the conversation is going to be of a higher order. It's easy. We call it the cosmic easy button. And it also, and this is the last thing I'll say about it just for the moment, but one of the things I really love about it is that it can be used in spiritual practice to develop that direct communication. One of the teachings that came out of it or came through it was this lack of a need for any of us to have any interpreter between us and the divine. And we know this intellectually, but there's usually a piece of us because of how we've been brought up in different religions and philosophies that even in indigenous cultures, the shaman would interpret the dreams or interpret what needed to be done. That is over. That whole construct is no longer necessary or desirable, actually. Not that we can't learn from people, we absolutely can. We can learn from the past leaders and speakers and activists and spiritual beings. We can learn from all of them. But the main thing is to become the vessel ourselves. And so when we put an infinity wave up and down into the earth, and we sort of sit in the apex, in the 0 point center of it, now we really come to understand that we are the walking embodiment of both realms. We are given directives, actually. When we tune in and listen, we will be given directives about how to interpret what the earth wants from us, what the heavens want from us, to use a word. Many others can be put in that place. But really to take it on and develop our own channels, our own direct connection with Source. So those are some of the key elements of the infinity wave. And so I've been teaching that, and just to touch base on your memory about the orphanage. So I didn't actually, I was part of a team putting together a not-for-profit, and we went to an orphanage in South Africa that had one of the many orphanages that came about as a result of the AIDS epidemic. And we had an amazing experience there. I took a group to the White Lions in Timbavati before we went to the orphanage. And what that did was to really connect us with these gigantic hearts of these lions that are called the star beings. I mean, they truly believe that they are embodied star beings and that they needed to be protected, which is why they're in a preserve. And we would go every day, twice a day, and we would just sit with them and commune with them. Open air Jeep, lions right there, no barrier, no nothing. And it was absolutely incredible. We're not just sitting with the lions, we're sitting with the entire natural world that is their world, of which they are very clearly kings and queens. You can feel it. It's not intellectual, you can feel it. And gain wisdom from them. And from that place, we went to the children, and boy, it was an amazing experience. So,
wow.
Very grateful for that.
What do you feel is like a technique that the listeners can use? I mean, I was kind of doing it with you, bringing that infinity loop, kind of through the body, almost like at the heart, and then coming up through the crown chakra and down to our feet. Yeah, just kind of bringing it through.
Sounds great. I love it.
Yeah, I love that. And that cosmic consciousness, you said, of like the love and compassion. I mean, it just really, you can feel it. I can feel it.
Yeah. The interesting thing, Abby, is that in the 10 years since this whole thing started, in the beginning, it took a little, getting going to feel the wave. Now, whenever I teach it to somebody or speak about it to somebody, it's immediate. It's right there. The field of it has grown because more and more people have been introduced to it and have used it. And so now the egregore, the thought field of it has developed. And I also feel that the delivery of it from the universe, is more potent. And, back in the day when I started, I of course searched online for anything with the infinity sign in it. And, it was nowhere to be found. It was not in any logos. It was not in any packaging. It was not in any jewelry. It was nowhere. And this was 2011 when I was running my first workshops. But they had said that this initially would anchor in at the end of, it's anchor in throughout 2011 and then finally at the end of the year. January 2012, like clockwork, it starts to show up. I see it spray painted on a sidewalk. If somebody gives me a cappuccino with it in the foam, and it just started. And a couple of years ago, it was the #1 tattoo for women. It's now in so many logos that it's not even funny. And people don't know why they're using it. They don't know why, because this is a delivery mechanism, but it's in the collective, unconscious or otherwise. So that's been kind of fun to watch over the years.
I love how things show up, and you become, part of intuition is you become the vibration that you want, and then it starts showing up, right?
That's
so
right.
It's like, maybe for everybody listening, think about what is it that you want to have in your life and start to become that energetically and raise your vibration with love and just doing that infinity sign and just notice how things start to match that frequency. And we also can open the lines. I mean, usually I do it the last 15 minutes, but if anybody wants to call in, you can call 858-692-4555. And that will give you access to ask a question, because I feel like we always love to hear each other, right? Like we love to hear you. So like if you want to be heard and just have us support you in that, we're here. And then, yeah, sometimes there's blocks that can come up. So it's like bringing in the love and light, seeing what needs to be released so the energy can flow into that full alignment of you. And then, the other way is just, for a reminder, people who are just hopping on or have listened before, when you connect with your intuition, it's bringing your awareness from your head, your heart. So it's through the heart, really sitting in your heart. And then dropping down into your gut and feeling that intuitive knowing. And then following that. And as you take action from there, you're in inspired, aligned action, right? And so things can happen and manifest very quickly and in alignment with your heart's desire. Yeah. Yeah. So there you go. Is there anything else you wanted to add to that, Hope?
Oh, well, I completely agree. And that has been it's played out so many times. I can't even count them all. I'm writing a book about it. And thank goodness I took notes along the way, because it's just astounding how things fall into place, how things appear, how many ways, once we, as you say, once we raise ourselves and place ourselves into a place that is of a higher order, and then things will naturally gravitate, magnetize to us, because that's who we are now. We have shifted ourselves. What I'm happy, the reason I'm happy about the infinity wave is that a lot of our teachings have, even though they really weren't meant to be, many of them have ended up being very cerebral. So I do this and then I do that, and how do I get all the people? And what you said about moving down to the heart and moving down to the gut is not cerebral. Now we all know there are brain cells in the heart. It's already connected, so we don't have to worry about that. It's all taken care of. Moving to the heart's knowing is something that we just we have a hard time doing. Buddha said the longest journey is from the head to the heart. It's dropping this. This is what the second vision meant. Drop all of that knowing, that learning, and move to the knowing. And the wave can be used to help with that process. There is a beautiful way to just run the wave in the heart and actually stretch the heart. I call it widening the heart. And this is a practice that appeared to me in a vision, another vision I had. I started to have visions of some of our spiritual teachers of bygone days. And they would just pop in, like this one. This was Yeshua. I was meditating in a chapel in Glastonbury, England, and somebody was leading the meditation, and I was sitting there trying to go along, and all of a sudden, and I was in a little bit of judgment, I have to say. So all of a sudden, Yeshua pops in, and he puts his hands like this into my heart, and he goes like this, just like that, and he and with this infinity wave, he's just going, like that. And it was so fast, and he was in and out so quickly that by the end of the meditation, I really had forgotten about it. And then we went out of the chapel and we went to lunch, and it dropped into my consciousness again. I went, oh my God, I had this visit. And this practice came out of that visit. So just imagining the infinity wave already bearing love and compassion. You don't have to force it. You don't have to feel it. Just know that it's there. And with every breath, the heart stretches a little more, a little more. And this is important now, because we've been so primed to be in fear and to be nervous and to be gripping, because we don't know what's happening. And so the heart gets hard. It gets a shell or two or three around it. And how do you soften that? You're not going to get at it with a hammer, you know. You're going to get out at it with love and compassion. That those waters will soothe, calm, dissolve what is bollocksed up with the heart, so that we can move to that level of intuition and that level of knowing. So I just offer that as a that's a practice that is, you know, one of the first ones we do.
Yeah. Well, let's see. Is there anything else that you'd like to add? And it's fun to experience it even as you're talking, you know? We did have a caller come in. Um, is there anything else you want to add to that?
About the infinity wave?
Anything? Yeah.
Well, you know, it is whenever you're inviting, and it's all about inviting and allowing, and it's not about doing it right. There is no right or wrong way, and it's non-denominational. This is an energetic tool that can stand next to and enhance any philosophy or religion or spiritual perspective. Um, it it has the effect, because it's 10th dimensional. It sort of lifts us out of 3D, scoops us up into that higher order vibration that we were talking about without a lot of effort. You see, how we're going to, from what I understand from my team, is how we're going to move forward is not through efforting. It's through this allowing. It's through this invitation. It's through this not knowing mind. Be an I don't know mind. That's the blessing, the weird blessing about this time. We're all in I don't know what the heck is going on mind. And that's a good thing, because when we're in that mind, we can actually learn. We can actually receive new information. When we know everything, well, it's locked down. When we don't know, we're a little off balance and we're going, what? What? And that's when we can receive new information. So we pull in the infinity wave, we just let it surround us, wrap us up. It calms us down. The waters calm us. That's number one. But it raises us up into something less dense. We don't have to identify what. And automatically, we are in that higher vibrational state. And, and in that higher vibrational state, you know, whatever we imagine, how we want our lives to be, that's the time to do it. Right? We don't, the imagination is our connector to spirit. So if we want a world that is truly free, not just pretend free, is truly benevolent, is truly fill in the blank, then get in the wave and then let your imagination spill out. Because the more that I understand about physics, the more that I understand, and I'm not a scientist, but I'm very, very interested in science and have been following it all along. It's quite possible we're living in this thing called a holographic universe. And if we're living in a holographic universe, then our thoughts and projections matter a lot. So it's almost our responsibility to get ourselves lifted up, get ourselves in that higher vibe easily, effortlessly, and then broadcast, have fun, paint the sky, do whatever looks and feels good for the future. If enough of us do that, the chances are more likely that we'll head in that direction. Now, what happens between us between now and then, I don't know. But seems to be the if I had to boil it all down, those are the key components to where we are right now. We're all being asked to evolve. And how we're going to do that, we can do it the hard way or the easy way.
So we actually did have a caller, it's my mom. So let me see if she wants to
Oh,
ask a question.
great.
You know, like that's funny. She's like, I'm calling to get in your show. So, Mom, what question did you want to ask? Can you hear me? So you are live. What question did you want to ask? I just want to tell her. Can you hear her? Okay, she can't hear you. So she said she's been doing it. She's been doing this. I don't, yeah, that's interesting. Okay.
Okay, so I intuitively have
Okay. She was just saying
not really
that she was doing it.
It's
Okay.
just that I'm so fascinated with this call.
Oh, she really likes the call. She's fascinated with it. I know, but.
Because okay, I have been having one of my altars, and I didn't even know why. I had a selenite wand in front of my.
Nice. So she said she was doing the infinity sign with selenite. That's cool.
I didn't even know it.
Yeah.
I didn't know why.
Cool. Cool. Well, thank you. Thanks for sharing. Yeah, I don't know how much you could hear, but basically it sounds like she's been doing the infinity sign for a while. So when she saw that that's what you teach, she's like, oh my goodness, I've been doing that. So very cool.
You know, that is so common. I hear from people all the time, you know, I've been doodling figure eights my whole life. My email address is full of eights, and people have an instinctual attraction. Some people have an instinctual attraction to that geometry, and I believe there's a reason for that. It's possible that it is the shape of creation. And I know that might sound pretty bizarre, but that is what I was shown one day when I was in a channeling session, and Creator showed us up. It's only happened a few times, but on this particular day, I was so trying to find the unifying principle of how this all works together. As I said, I'm not a scientist, but I'm so interested. There's got to be a unifying principle. And Creator came in, and right like this in front of my face shows me a giant infinity sign this way. And it's kind of like a runway. And on it was all of history. And it sprinkled around like, you know, you could see all the eras and epochs and whatever, and they were moving. And one thing we you know, the geometry of the infinity wave has taught me, I mean, it's so brilliant, because here is above, as above, so below. First of all, there's that. And there's also this inherent movement that is how everything works. We go into expansion, and then we contract, and then we expand, and then we contract. It repeats over and over. Of course, obviously the seasons, but on smaller and larger scales, this contraction expansion, you know, is always in play in the natural world and in the universe. The universe is expanding at the moment, but at one point it contracted. So that's a really big timeline on that one. But Creator was showing me that this is the way that all creation is working. It's flowing on this infinity. Now, that was an unexpected vision, and, you know, who knows if that's quote unquote right, but it helped me. This was my answer to what's the unifying principle. What goes around comes around. It's just all a continuum. And when we think of it as fixed, or when we think of it as a place we're going to, that's not to think of, that's not it. It's always to think of things as a continuum. And this also is very helpful when going through a personal struggle, because at times it feels, people will say, oh, I feel stuck. And then I might dowse for them. And by the way, I'll show you my dowsing rods here. So here are my cute little dowsing rods. They're 2 little L rods, and I'll show you how they work. But when a person is going through a struggle, I will dowse for where they are on the continuum. Are they coming into the crunchy place? Are they moving out of it, but they can't tell yet? Where are they on the spectrum? Remembering that this too shall pass. It can't not be moving. It might not feel like it at the moment, but it can't not be moving. We are always expanding and contracting. We are always going through a crunchy place and then coming out and then growing and then coming back. It's always going to happen that way. And in fact, when we talk about evolution as a spiral, which is how I tend to think of it, it's actually a figure 8 spiraling, right? Because every time we come around again, we're higher on the spiral than we were before. And we can look back and say, gee, I've been here before, but I'm different now. Yeah. I have more information. I have more knowledge. I have more wisdom. I'm not going to repeat exactly what I did before. I'm going to do it a little differently. That's because you're up here, whereas before you were down there. So lots and lots of spirals, lots of infinities as we spiral. So this is how the rods work, the dowsing rods. So I say, so they're in a sleeve here. This is free and clear. It moves like that. So my hands can't tell it what to do. Not that I would want to. But if I say, please show me a yes, the rods come in. And if I say, please show me a no, the rods go out. Okay. And what's wonderful is that there are lots of permutations. So sometimes I get an answer that is 50%, show me that. So they come halfway in. Sometimes the rods go like this. Sometimes they have all these different ways that they go, and they also can change their speed. So if I ask something and it goes really slow, yes, I know that it's yes, but it might take some time. Yes, but let's ask a few more questions about the issue because it's a little hesitating. Whereas a real yes is clear as day, comes right in. We also always ask about if things are in our highest physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual good. And if I get a reading that is halfway or partial, then I'll go back and I'll ask, is it in a highest physical good, mental good, emotional good, and spiritual good? We tend to think of things as only one yes, right? Encompassing everything. And that's not really how it is. Sometimes things are, and depending on the kind of person we are, let's say we're an empath, which means that we're so tuned in to other people's feelings and our own feelings that in our balance of physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual, our emotions are actually taking up more than their 25%. They're taking up 60%, let's say. So when I ask, is it in somebody's highest physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual good to do something, I have to see if their emotions are driving the train, and then sort of pick it apart, and then a course of action can be decided upon. And the other thing is that when I dowse, it sort of like opens up my little window, and images and words start to come in, and I get direct information. And so the rods are really more helping to confirm whether what I'm getting is accurate or not. So that's how I work with the dowsing rods. Well, one way I work with the dowsing rods. In the days before, when I would take people on trips, they also helped me to know where to go, when to go, lots of things. So
you do like personal sessions as well too, right? Like people could email you if they wanted to.
oh, absolutely. Yeah, I do a lot of personal sessions, and I do coaching for, you know, because sometimes a one-off is great if it's an easy issue, but sometimes it's a lifetime after lifetime issue, and in that case, it's habits have grown up around the issue, and so it can take 2 or 3 times to try to unwind, you know, the behavior and the thinking, the belief systems. So there, I do that too, but I'm always happy to help anybody. It's an amazing tool that I don't know where I'd be without. I really, I've been doing it now for 25 years, and and I encourage other people to take up. Now, dowsing rods are one thing, but pendulums are dowsing, body dowsing. I don't get as much nuance with those tools. I use pendulums for healing mostly, but the rods to me are the best for these deep dives into questions that we have about, you know, when we're at a crossroads and need clarity about moving forward. What's that?
What's your email for people to email you?
Oh, info@ we-infinity.com. That's WE, a little dash, infinity.com. We-infinity.com.
Oh, cool. Well, yeah, I think the other thing I was thinking is how it all ties into oneness, right? So you kind of talked about the holographic universe as you're connecting to your intuition, being connected to the infinity sign. Like, how does that naturally expand our oneness, like keep us connected to each other? You know, there's that greater flow that's serving that higher whole.
Yeah. Well, when I talk about oneness, one of the things that I've discovered along this little path of mine is that the first thing to do when desiring to be in oneness is to have that oneness within oneself. What does that mean? A lot of times, because of traumatic events in our lives, especially when we're little, pieces of ourselves sort of break off, and they're still in the field, but they're not embodied. They're not fully in. So you can imagine that asking a person with a few, 1, 2, or 3 fragmented selves to experience oneness would be a bit challenging because they're not cohesive in themselves. So that's the first step, is to, and this is where the infinity wave can help too. You sort of loop these aspects of ourselves, these ones that are a little nervous, and we loop them, we pull them back in with love and compassion. How else would they feel safe in coming back? So the number one thing is to find, rediscover this oneness within oneself, and then we can elevate ourselves again with a wave or with whatever tool that you have, whatever means. For some people, it's just going into the woods and sitting on a rock. Is to, you almost have to willfully imagine that there is no difference between you and what looks like a hard world, a hard and fast world, you know, a material world. That there's no barrier. That it is all atoms vibrating, maybe at different speeds, but it's all atoms vibrating. And once we come to that understanding, even on a scientific level, this sense of not being any different from the trees around us, the people around us, the air that we breathe, the stars, the sun, that sense can expand. And you know, I heard a story recently by, I can't remember who it was, but the spiritual leader, and they told the story of this woman who ran a bed and breakfast at some point, but it was only for meditators, and it was for people who wanted to rent this room just specifically to meditate for long periods of time, a month, 2 months, 3 months. And maybe they would come down and have a meal now and then, but basically that was their cave, so to speak. And this one time she had a guy in there, and he hadn't come down for a long time. And so she thought, you know, I really should, I'll just bring him a cup of tea. You know, he hasn't had anything to eat. You know, I should just do something. So she went up to the room and opened the door and promptly dropped the teacup, because she could see that his upper body was sitting, you know, was there meditating, but his lower body was invisible. So he had so dissolved his thinking of there being a barrier between himself and other worlds that he was literally disappearing. And we know there are stories upon stories of you know, the Indian masters who have done, you know, things like this, and others, you know, so-called miracles. What it comes down to for me is, you know, the barriers in our own minds about what we can, how much can we believe is possible? You know, how caged are we by our own minds? And so that's why the imagination is so helpful, because there's no risk in imagining that we are one with that rock, that we are the same as that tree. There's no risk in it. And so we can safely perceive the melting. So it's a getting to oneness is an interesting journey, and I think it's very important that we do it. And some days it sticks, and some days it doesn't, and you got to go back and do it again. But I think the widening of the heart that I spoke to earlier is one of the best practices to do to feel that oneness, the emotional oneness, the heart oneness with everything. So I would encourage people to do that.
And even the dowsing, didn't it kind of open? It looked like it opened. Yeah. So that's fascinating. Yes as an open. So yeah, it makes sense actually. And that's with intuition too, right? Like a yes is an expansive and a no is a constrictive. So it totally is parallel. It's beautiful.
Well, it's actually funny because for some people, it's actually the opposite. Yes is in and no is out. And for other people, yes is out and no is in. So that's one of the first things you do when you get your dowsing tool is you identify what's a yes and what's a no. Sometimes the rods will tell you, and sometimes you need to program the rods. If they don't move, then you have to program them. But yeah, I discovered that at a show that I was doing years ago. I had a table and I had all these little dowsing rods, you know, to sell to people. And people would come up and go, what are these, you know, and they'd start to do it. And I'd say, well, ask them to please show you a yes. And about a third of the people were yes out and no in. And the other people were the other way. So it's individual.
Well, let's see. I know we're just wrapping up towards the end. Is there anybody else, if you want to call, you can call 858-692-4555 to ask any questions before we wrap up here. Is there anything else you would like to add, Hope, before we wrap up the show for today?
You know, I just would love to invite people to my free meditations on Monday nights. I've started them in April as a way to help all of us, you know, during the difficult days that April was, and it's just been going on since then. The community is growing. It's a lovely group, and we don't do a lot of talking. We have a nice little check-in with one another, and then it's a channeled meditation. I have no idea what the topic will be until I close my eyes and we start to go in. It's people return every week because it's become kind of a mainstay. It's become a place to get recharged. And sometimes it's just every week is different. But that's something that if you are interested in that, I would just sign up on my website, which is we-infinity.com, and you'll get my announcements about that and other things that come along. I don't email too often, once a week usually. So yeah, I welcome everybody, and it's I think it's a plus in the week.
Yeah, and just to be part of the community and just feel that, you know, everybody's kind of doing
Yes,
it.
exactly. Exactly. Yeah.
That's cool. Well, thank you so much for being on the show today. I so appreciate it. And yes, I do really recommend everybody go check that out. It's just, she's incredible. And I know everything she does is so clear and aligned. So I'm sure it'll help you. So I think that's it that I have for today. Just make sure to just tune in, listen to your intuition as you're like following your next step. You know, be really clear about your intention. What is it you want? And notice your intuitive yeses, the expansion, or the no's, and then just keep moving in the direction that feels better and better and better. And notice how the world's going to keep reflecting back to you, like she talked about the hologram of what's really going on, right? And so then you can move into that highest alignment of what your soul is here. So, namaste, everybody, and we will see you next week.
Thank you, Abby.
You're welcome. Bye.